As promised, we're going to go about and look at the trees and other plantings that's out from the main traditional garden. We're up on the top flat now, if you recognize. And some people looking at my videos might think, well, why is he having so many tree seedlings? I did mention it before. I'm looking for the genetics that will grow best here in my garden. And right here, this is the entryway to one of the what I'm calling garden rooms up on the top flat. And I have a mulberry, Russian mulberry planted here, and I have another one over right there. They came back wonderfully this year. So if we look in close at this one, you can see there's a 2-inch shoot here, another one here, a 1-inch shoot here, another 2-inch shoot down here. It's growing wonderfully. It leaved out nicely and growing wonderfully well here in this location. Just from a standing up view now, here's the other one on the other side of this opening. And the opening for the slope down to the bog, there's this one. This one is not coming, but there is life there. So I'm hoping that it's going to come. If not, I will replace it with another one. Of the 11 or 12 that I put up here, it looks like I have 3 that are really taking off, and I have 4 more that are still alive. They may make it and may not. The Osage orange that the rabbits didn't cut down, they're all eating back. I had put the Osage orange down here, cup and all, the red cup. So I decided to go, and since they were eat down like that, take the cups up. And when I lifted it up, I realized that the root itself is still alive. And it had been growing out into the native soil really well. So they would have done well had not the rabbits cut them off. Now, what I did, I just planted them back then, and I said, well, they might still sprout again. Since I'm not doing anything here right now, I'll just leave them there and see if they'll sprout. I have a couple of trees that it's not your traditional crop, but I think they're going to be wonderful, and the tree itself is growing wonderfully fine. This is the maturing apricot. And I have 3. I have one over there, one here, and one here. When I was doing my research for the Carolina allspice, I thought that this would be a good area for them to grow. But I planted 5 here, and I only have 2 that are alive. And even being alive, they're not much alive. This one has a sprout coming along, so he might do alright. The red raspberry patch is coming along nicely, as it does every year. I have to straighten this up so I'll have an actual pathway to get through there. As you can see, all the blossoms are starting. This apple tree is going to be loaded again this year. It came out with as many blossoms as a cherry tree would. And now that was a bunch of blossoms there, see? We'll see how many turns into apples and how many apples the tree sheds. So yeah, this is what I mean by why are you growing so many tree seedlings and other seedlings. There's 170 plants here. I have 40 red mulberry. There's 10 honey locusts here. There's 45 black locusts. There's 40 bower kiwi. There's a few Russian mulberry over there. There's a green gage, a Siberian pea shrub, some birch leaf pear. There's another 2 Osage orange over there. There's a lot of property to put them on, but then I will be losing some of these as well due to factors such as hares and slugs and whatnot. I need to put these into 2 or 3 gallon pots, and I found out a couple of days ago that I can get sifted topsoil for $20 a yard. So I said, at that price, I'm going to go and get the sifted topsoil. I have lots of organic matter that I can mix in with it anyway. But I have too much on my plate to actually go out and try and find the topsoil and collect it and sift the big rocks out of it and that kind of thing. So from the local construction company, I'm going to buy a couple yards of sifted topsoil and hot pot all of this. Then I can move them around and decide where I'm going to put them before I actually plant them, and I will see which ones are the strongest as well. The well-established grapevines, you see, I'll get grapes this year. I get grapes pretty much every year, but they never ripen. I tried a couple of years ago about making verjuice, and I'm going to try again this year to make verjuice with the unripe grapes. There's one well-established grapevine there and another one up right there. Tomatoes can be hardy little buggers. You see those plants are still alive? Well, I put them out to harden off, and a windstorm come up and whipped them around. I thought for sure I was just going to have a bunch of dead plants to show you. Hopefully it shows up right. But I took the best of them and I planted them along here like I was going to. And you see this on the end, they are quite healthy. You can still see the damage down here where it had got whipped around. And I'm thinking I will cover this portion. I might stand it up and heap the soil around it because I have some onions. If I can get this one back here right again. And they're planted all around. I had another set of onions, and then I said, well, I'll plant them out and I'll leave squares where I'm going to put my tomatoes. So the tomatoes planted in the center of each square that I left out, and there's onions all around. But I can put like a pyramid, a hump of soil here in the center around the base of those tomato plants. This one is brandywine. This one here is bush beefsteak. Once again, it's not as well, but the top is healthy on that one. The yellow pear, well, as expected, that's a toughie anyway, and he's really healthy on top here. So I will get tomatoes this year. It's starting to fade now. You see the color is going out of the blossoms, the lilac bush. This is 3-liter planters that I was making from the containers that I have to buy when I'm buying cooking oil. I put 2 scarlet runner bean seedlings in here, and I put them under there to see what they will grow like. Now this one didn't make it. This one's got a couple bad leaves, but there's good leaves up here, so I think it's going to take off, and the idea is to get it to climb up the lilac bush now, and later on I'll have scarlet flowers throughout the lilac bush, and then eventually get beans. This is on the opposite side of the lilac bush, and I put 2 in here, and the 2 that's in here seem to be doing much better, ready to take off and climb up the bush. Funny thing, actually, before I say funny thing, some good news. The bugs that have been destroying the snowball bushes in town, I guess their cycle is gone, and they're not coming back. I see no damage on this bush at all, and it's loaded in flower heads. It's going to be beautiful here now in a little bit, and you'll get to see. Now the funny thing, back in 2019, I planted straight 8 cucumbers around the base of this bush, and I had a wonderful crop of cucumbers. Last year I did the same thing, and every cucumber vine died. This year I put 8 bush crop cucumbers around there. Looks like I got one trying to make it. Other than that, every other cucumber vine died. So I have no answer for that. I like looking along here, actually. I've got so much of this food growing here that I really didn't even plant. I have 2 tomato vines in here furthest north, and a golden nugget. This is the cabbage. He'll be going to seed. Right down by this section of the front fence, I had some spaces, and this being one of them. Vegetable marrow, if you remember from last year, they actually use kind of like a bush they grow in. And so I decided to put them down here. I had thought actually I could just train them up the fence. But since they're bush, I probably won't have to do that. I could just let them grow. Vegetable spaghetti is what I have here, not vegetable marrow. That's a vegetable marrow, so I have to make sure that they don't cross. So the rest are vegetable marrow. I put them along here, and I'll let them grow here by the front fence. They should do well. Another interesting thing about here, you see, okay, so there's one of the peas that I set earlier with the pipe. You see how much longer this one is? I'm thinking this was a pea that had fallen from last year and sprouted. I have another one right here. Here's another larger one. He's actually coming from way back here, and he's growing like that. On the outside of the first section, California poppy, they're doing excellent. And I do have, this was one of the poorer ones to start with. That's a purple echinacea, the purple coneflower. I have a bit more work to do here before it looks proper. The middle section, the easiest to get at, of course, is looking proper anyway. When we go around the back side, you can see all the peas coming up, and the tomatoes, once again, they've been wind whipped down low, so that's why you see all this damage. But when you get up to the top, we've got healthy leaves. And all three of these, which are brandywine tomatoes. The onions, the green onions, all in a line, they're doing excellent all along this bed. There's a Greek oregano. This is another interesting one that I'm trying to influence to spread. It's easy to get out. It does have runners, and it can spread by seeds. It puts on these little yellow flowers. As far as the leaf goes, similar to a clover, but it's heart shape and a little lighter. It's wood sorrel. Okay, let's see this one. It's wood sorrel, and it's got a really strong lemony flavor to it. It's delicious. So it showed up here, and I'm hoping to encourage it now to actually become kind of a ground cover, and I will just remove it where I need to put in plants for it to not overcome. I have one little Wattam butternut. I actually have two, but I don't think that one's going to come to anything. Back here, these really got walloped. I think they're going to come though, and it's the Bloody Butcher. This one has a tomato on it. I'm not being picky about should I remove flowers, should I not, because I have to figure out which is the strongest plants and what will grow in my climate. Right now I'm looking for a plant that will grow vigorously in the Newfoundland climate. This is on the outside of the center. You see California poppy. They grow all along this section. And here's a beautiful specimen for your purple echinacea. I have 3 purple echinacea planted along there. And like I said, there's California poppy growing all along there. So that's 2 medicinal herbs that I have there. I got wood sorrel, green onion, peas, tomatoes, butternut squash, marrow squash. This here I haven't planted much, as I said before. The 2 worst echinacea plants, I did plant one on this end and one down the far end. Hopefully they'll take hold and grow, but if they don't, I'm not going to fret. We'll go around the back side. Not much, okay. The grapevines. I don't think I've told you this yet. They were by the south side of the house, and I decided, no, I don't want a grapevine growing up against the house. Where can I put them? So I decided that I would put them here and train them along the existing fence. That way there's already something there to train it, and it's not giving me extra work to actually have to build something. The line of green onions continue on. I have calomel growing here. There's a couple other spots along here as well. So they're spreading down here, which is good. There's the other grapevine that was by the south side of the house. Now these yellow flowers, That's turnip, purple top white globe, and they can self-seed there if they want. I have no problem with that. I have volunteer turnip growing. These tomatoes, I planted those over here. It's our bush beefsteak. So they're doing okay, coming along well. And I have 2 straight 8 cucumbers here that seems like they might make it to something, and I might get myself some good cucumbers. I found out I'm not a pickle person, so but cucumbers, fresh cucumbers, I love them, and I could eat a lot of them. So during the growing season, I want to get cucumbers producing. Lovage and St. John's wort. These are coming along nicely. These are the C. Maxima. Last year I did a video of what squash is this. And it's a green pumpkin. It stays green. The inside is a deep orange color, the flesh, and it's oh so delicious. I don't know what it is. It got mixed in with my the Atlantic Giant seed somehow. But I said I'm keeping seeds from that. And so there they are growing. This year I have 1, 2, 3, and another little one in there. I have 4 plants here. Whereas last year I only had the 1 plant, of course. Now here's a puzzle. You see? A couple little sprouts right there. Okay, this is a Chinese goji, Goji chinensis, that I started from seed. There we are there. And then those next set of sticks up there. About 4 feet away. This is Goji chinensis, a plant that I started from seed. So one is coming back relatively nicely. If I can get some good sifted compost to put around here now, it'd be beautiful. But 4 feet away, the other one is don't want to come to much. You've seen Romeo cherry before. Last year, that one put on a couple of flowers. I thought I was going to get a cherry, but I wasn't successful. So any year at all now, I'm going to be getting cherries off that. We had a very mild winter. Smoke bush is a beautiful bush as it is, because as you can see, it's got that maroon color. And that's the way it will stay the entire growing season. But I was out inspecting this morning, and I noticed there's flower buds all over this thing. So later the growing season, I'm hoping to be able to show you this. It'll be just covered in what looks like smoke, hence the name smoke bush. And this is Juliet. You see, they're putting on growth. They've got a 2-inch long growth right here. They're growing well every year. Don't know when they're going to start to flower for me. They just called it common pear, which I wish they had given it a better name. This is where the growth started this year. So we've got 5 inches of growth so far, and it's not even July yet. This is the Shed Wars garden. So the Shed Wars garden is going to come right down to the bridge that goes over to the greenhouse and work around. So that's in different videos. I can only use the $300 worth of tools on this area, This is the other pear tree. But I want to show you this one, okay? So this is the firecracker goji, the one that had a piece broken, and I brought it inside to see if I can get it to root. But as you can see, it's leaved out quite nicely. And there used to be one down right there that I moved last year. Coming just to the west of the Shed Wars garden, Chippewa blueberry. This bush is coming along well, and it had a few flowers on it. Hopefully I'm going to get some berries off this year and the birds don't get them first. And I'm debating whether I'm going to extend Shed Wars garden up to include just at least one blueberry bush next to it. When I done my last harvest, these are still small, but now they're just taken right off. This is the Greek oregano, and this is a Meyer Bland cherry plum. Now I'm going to do a little short video because I have some maintenance to do here. I'll talk about the plum and the oregano and this other blueberry bush when I do that. So here's another example. Up about where that piece of green ribbon is, there used to be a red currant bush. And for a few years, a bug came in similar to what was happening with the snowball bush, and it would just destroy the vegetation every year, both bushes, the red currants and these white currants. This bush survived, and it grows very lushly every year without fail. It's loaded in berries. The red one succumbed and died. I do have another Russian mulberry. There's a lot of fruit that the bushes are loaded, and that's their low bush blueberries here. And once again, if I can get them before the birds do, it would be very nice. The alpine strawberries, they were all loaded in flowers. They're fading now, but you can still see flowers around. The apple tree on the cliff is right there. It's had quite a few blossoms as well. But just over from that one, I think it's 20 feet. I put this mulberry bush here. This is a Russian mulberry, and seems like the slug got at that leaf, but so that's what was it? I had 3 growing well up on the top flat, and I have this one here. Plus I have 4 that's got life in them, but that's another story. Now, referring back to, I mentioned earlier, Carolina Allspice, they grow up, according to my research, they look like an alder. So growing up something like this shrubby thing right here. However, they put on these inconspicuous deep red blossoms that in generations past, people used to actually take those and they put them in their pockets or in their bra or whatever to use as a perfume. The other thing about Carolina Allspice is that the bark can be used as a substitute for cinnamon. And as you can see, this one here is growing really nicely, and it should do well here, even though it's basically in one of the hottest areas of the garden. I really didn't expect it to do as well here as it would in partial shade, but that's the way it is. You experiment and you find out where things will go. I have a gooseberry bush. I've been wanting a gooseberry bush for 2 or 3 years, but I didn't want to mail order plants. I was down to the local nursery there a couple of weeks ago, and I was walking around and I seen these 3 gooseberry bushes there. And when I went in to ask about them, they said they didn't have any. But there's 3 out there. Well, I had the money to buy one, so they sold me the one. See, what happened was that they only had the 3. There was gooseberry and one other. Their supplier, they didn't have enough to warrant advertising it as something they had. They were just going to keep those 3. But they sold me this one. Pixwell Gooseberry, it's called. And on the way home, like you would, I ended up breaking some of these branches. So I took the pieces of branches and dipped them in rooting hormone like you would, and I stuck them in some soil. I have this now. I put it in the kitchen window while I'm waiting for it to root. I just brought them out here to show you. It looks like that's a little bit of new growth right there. This one is not looking as strong. Now this one, it had one leaf. I picked a leaf off of this here in the fork here. This is new growth. There's new growth on this, and this one turns toward the sun. So they're quite lively, and I'm just waiting for them to put on some significant growth, and then I'll test the roots. But if they all take root, then I'll have 5 gooseberry bushes, won't I? One of them for shed wars. I think behind that maple tree would be an excellent place to put a gooseberry bush. And I want to put at least 2 in the shady area, because I understand that gooseberries will grow well in partial shade. I don't know how deep of a shade that they will take. This is an ornamental wisteria. It comes out loaded in these itty bitty blossoms every year, but it looks so beautiful when the whole plant is completely loaded in flowers. It is a bush, so you have canes growing up from the root ball beneath. So every once in a while you will have to cut out the whole bush, and if it gets too out of hand and shrubby looking, you just trim off the outside ones and gives it this kind of upright look. Red currants, so of course that one was dead, but from my buddy I got some rootings of red currants and black currants. These are coming along nicely. Now the red currants, I had done some TLC before. That one and this one is producing. When you get over here, this one had less TLC, so he's growing less. And these 2 I've never done much with at all. Now this one is starting to put on flowers, a lot of flowers. So I'm hoping that this year I would get a significant amount of black currants. They are kind of bitter right up until they get good and ripe. You have to let black currants get really ripe. This one here, as you can see, it's because I let the grass grow in, and the grass is really restricting its growth, and that's part of the job for this year, is to eliminate anything that's restricting the growth or greatly reduce anything that's restricting the growth of plants like currants. And as I said, I had the one firecracker goji that you've seen that was coming along, and this one here, he was weaker to start with. I moved him up here thinking that, well, this will be a better place for it, and nothing. That's another Maya brand cherry plum there. Green lemon thyme, that's the plant that I moved from the herb bed. And that is the Romeo cherry that I cloned. This is my one sea berry that I got to grow from seed. See if we can get around all these extra weeds there. I'm hoping this year I'll find out whether that's a male or female, but I will continue to try and find out what is the best way to get these to grow from seed. So I have some fruit trees growing along here. And when I initially planted them, there was still a trouble with moose. So there's one tree back actually where the gooseberry bush is planted now that completely succumbed to the damage from the moose. There's another one here. That looks like the original tree is trying to put out sprouts, but it was pretty much dead, and the root sent up its own shoot. So this is from the rootstock that the tree that I bought was grafted onto. I let it grow up just to see what would happen. And this year, before any of the other cherry trees blossomed, this thing blossomed. And it was loaded in blossoms. The blossoms actually fell before the other cherry tree blossoms opened up. But it wasn't a problem of frost or anything. And there was quite a few pollinators out around at the time that this was flowering. I don't see many cherries on it, but there are some. So maybe this year I might get to see what kind of cherry that this tree will produce. This is the regular cherry tree, and it is loaded. This thing is going to produce so many cherries this year. Makes me happy. Everywhere, all over the entire tree. This is the regular plum tree. They don't produce as bountiful as cherries anyway, but there is a lot of plums on this tree, and it has blossomed, and blossoms have fallen, so you can't see the where all the blossoms are right now. If you want a fruit that grows like a weed, raspberries. These raspberry plants, that's golden raspberries. I put 4 canes down between those 2 trees when I started my YouTube channel, and they've grown back here. They're out now, out to this tree here. They grow all in through here. See, they're growing up here, over here, out along here. So they're growing everywhere. I have to start restricting them. This is a sugar maple. I've got to make sure that doesn't get overcome. I did have a second sugar maple there. Let's check them. Is anything coming? No. So that one's dead, but I do have that one. This cherry tree here, you see how it has blossoms in a group like that? Pin cherry don't normally do that. I don't know what kind of cherry tree this is, so I'm waiting to see. I'm letting it grow there, making sure it's not something that I want to keep, because I have eaten cherries off my cherry tree and spit out the kernels. So who knows, I mean, that could be growing up from one of the kernels that I spit out, right? And coming to that, we have come to the end of the tour outside of the main vegetable garden. There's my compost bins there in the hen house. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hit that thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed so that you can follow along. I'll see you in the next video.